It is the dirtiest sport. It is the most awful of the things that we make money off of in sports. And this is the worst permutation of it, which is what's famous, put it in a ring. It doesn't have to be good boxing. Boxing shows its ass here when this thing is the circus event that it was, and everyone tuned in a way they would not for any other fight like this. But I will tell you, Chris Cody, early on as I'm watching, and Mike Tyson doesn't throw a single uppercut. Jake Paul is wise to let an old man's legs get old by simply avoiding him early. And there he just gets tired because it is an impossible emotional fatigue and drain to go up into that fight to fight again over your fears and everything. A lot of legs are giving, no matter what your stamina level is, because the fear grabs your legs. And the fact that Jake Paul knew enough to stay away from him early, and the fact that I never saw an uppercut from Mike Tyson, never saw one throughout the fight because he wasn't close enough to do it, you knew early on that there wasn't going to be anything in his legs if Jake Paul could just keep him away for a couple of rounds.
I'm not going to lie. I didn't watch any of this. I was watching college football Friday night, and also it was like way too late. But I do need to just ask, why did we see Mike Tyson's ass?
Yeah, they did that.
Why did that happen?
I think it is a locker room interview setting, and I don't think that they were prepared for him turning around and wearing.
Oh, really? I thought that was totally manufactured.
No, it was his son doing the in locker room interview. They have a nice moment. They exchange a kiss on the cheek, and Mike just walks away from the interview, and we just see his ass.
Yeah, but the camera lingered, and I think even the camera kind of focused on it a little bit. The camera goes down. From my record, I watched it. I'm like, this is purely manufactured to get people talking about it on the internet. Look, you see the camera direction. The camera was anticipating that.
But then
happening.
it zoomed in to get the ass out of the shot.
If you're a cameraman, you just got to do your job there. If he's going to turn around and show you that, you got to pan out a little.
I thought
it's
it was
just what you do.
100% manufactured. They were trying to make a moment and do exactly what it did. For those people that weren't watching, had something on the internet that reminds you this event's happening.
I have a feeling if Christopher, under any circumstance, is interviewing me, and I'm, bottomless, he's going to say, Dad, put on some pants.
Right.
Is it that inconvenient to put on some pants?
You're going to ask Mike Tyson in that spot to put on some pants?
The son, hey, Dad, please, just, a pair of pants. But I didn't feel cheated. Look, it was a totally lopsided fight. They had to have a split decision to create any impetus for a rematch, and it was not even close to a split decision.
It's not going to be a rematch.
Like I just said, if you were listening. A split decision, and there would have been impetus for a rematch. When you have a unanimous decision, there's nothing. It just dies. But the reason I didn't feel cheated is that anybody who had Netflix was watching it for free. It's not like I paid $70 for pay-per-view.
Okay, you might not have felt cheated. I'm thinking that most people felt cheated by that. I don't think the event ends up meeting the expectations of whatever it is people thought they were going to get for 4.5 hours of live programming. It's very difficult, but the test, what they pulled off successfully is, because this part's just crazy to me. It really is. We're headed toward a duopoly in Hollywood. Like, it just sort of seems like you've got Amazon and Netflix fighting to become whatever the future of television is, with all of the money in the world to throw at the investment. How do I get 60 million people around their television the way that it only happened when we had 3 networks and it was like the season finale of MASH or Cheers or Friends or whatever it is that...
or Dallas.
Well, it wouldn't be Friends because that was after 3 networks. But there used to be a time. Look up for me, please. What gets a number of 60 million? You may not believe the number from Netflix. You're welcome to question all of the ratings in the modern age. I don't know what's accurate anymore either. But Netflix is saying that this is an unprecedented, record-breaking success. They're just now getting into live sports. They're just now beginning to change what this entire model is. And if they can throw up some freak fest that is just internet popular that cuts across 40 years of, but my wife asked me, she wanted to watch this. She never does this with anything in sports, nothing at all. She just wanted to see what the hell was going on, what the spectacle, why everybody was talking about this. And if the old man could do anything in this circumstance? Could he there are so many old people, because Chris is right. He's making fun of the mythology of Tyson that we are forever talking about. But even Jake Paul wasn't going to get close to that for the first round. Like, he wasn't going to go in there and take the risk of one punch from this man as an uppercut, even at 58, would be enough to slay him. He knew this. He's smart. He continues to keep his business alive. But Netflix had a buffering problem because of the number of people. That's a good problem to have when you're just starting in this part of the business.
I was at a place where the signal held steady the entire time, but it was overwhelming on social media and in my group chats. Everybody was having issues with the buffering for this live event. So I'm not really sure why some people had consistent streams and some others didn't.
This is something that's plagued Netflix, though, with like their live events, because there was a Love is Blind finale like 2 years ago that they just couldn't get on the air. It was supposed to be a live reunion, and it was delayed like hours and hours because they just couldn't get it live. So like I don't want to Monday morning quarterback it, but I was thinking like it's probably going to be an issue here if there's going to be this many people watching and they couldn't get Love is Blind on live.
And Bill, you know what's happening on Christmas?
What?
Chiefs Steelers
Yeah.
on
I
Netflix.
thought it was Beyonce.
They
And
were
Beyonce.
She's a halftime performer for that.
they were able to fix it in their defense.
They did.
Like, all of a sudden, the Paul fight was about to start, and it was fixed.
They
Yeah,
will.
no,
They
it was good.
They have unlimited resources. They're going to figure this out. They're going to get more people familiar with live sports broadcasts, and I mean, the stakes go up for them because they've been doing these things sporadically, live activations. Beginning in January, they get Monday Night Raw live every week on their platform. They're going to have to get good at it quick.
I also don't really get giving them a pass of like, this is their first try. They don't know how to do it. Like, they just buy everybody else that's done it for other networks before, right? Like, it's not like I'm trying to put on a boxing match and figuring it out live.
I
mean,
think they're outsourcing the
yeah, like
production.
they have people doing
And
it that
also-
do this
Hired.
professionally.
I don't think they do have
Cedric
unlimited
the Entertainer?
resources. They're a company that's not going to just spend a unneeded amount of money on something.
Yeah, I meant it like comparably. But I think that they were doing a lot of unconventional things, be it the manufactured moment with Mike Tyson's ass, which I think was 100% intentional.
So you think that was
Rosie
100%?
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
they were like, let's plan a bit with his ass.
I don't agree with him on that.
You know the worst part about it for me? So, like, I tuned in for, like, not even 2 minutes. So I tuned in probably around 9, and I saw, like, all the, like, fake graphics that are there. Like, oh, how is this giant person floating in the air? Like, this is weird, right? So, like, I tuned into that, and then I see they're like, tonight we have, and it's, like, all of these fights that come up, and I go, I don't care about boxing. Like, I'm not going to watch 4 hours of this to see one fight. I don't care about any of these fights. I don't really even care about the main event. Like, just sit around for 4 hours to watch Mike Tyson hopefully survive. Like, this is crazy. Also, like, side note, how crazy is it that on a regular basis at the Cowboys Stadium, they put up curtains for things that are not the football game. But poor Dak Prescott is blinded every single week. But for concerts, they put them up. They have them. They just refuse to put them up for the football game, and it's impacting their actual team.
The last Super Bowl drew 123 million viewers. For a cartoon freak show boxing match to draw half of that total was astounding.
But
Astounding.
to answer Dan's question, Seinfeld did 76.3 million. The final episode of Seinfeld did that. Cheers, the final episode, One for the Road. Great name, by the way, for Cheers. Did 80.5 million. Dallas, JR, Who Shot JR, did 83.6 million. And MASH did 106 million.
Now think about what we're talking about here when he uses those numbers and the quality of years that go into relationship building with an audience over raising your children for years and watching television, letting this into your home. The idea that this freak fest, this nonsense, a total contrivance. I think the whole thing was a contrivance except for the Mike Tyson ass part of it. I think the whole rest
They
of it,
lucked into an ass.
we lucked into an ass.
The women's fight, and which that's where I'm down with what Jake Paul's trying to do because his promotions really do try to get good fights on the card. And from a boxing card, I was really happy with the fights that were displayed that weren't the main event. It was just really drawn out. And I know that's usually the deal with these big boxing cards, but maybe it was because I was watching it with my dad, but this felt like it was taking forever. No, Dad, I actually think Quincy Jones is properly rated.
Let me, though, explain to you, if I could, the business model of what pay-per-view is. because Floyd Mayweather
Isn't
is
it pay-per-view?
yes.
Well, it's in the name. But
No, but I'm going to explain to you what it is. You're saying it's dragging, and I'm saying it doesn't matter. It's there to tease you for 6 hours to build up until what you're waiting for. It doesn't matter. It's time spent listening. It's time spent watching. They take those shows that he just mentioned is 90 million people for a half hour. This climbs over the course of the night. You're keeping 8 times as much time occupied over prime time on a Friday night. The value of what it is that Netflix just did is industry changing.
But we also don't have any numbers in terms of how long people actually stayed watching. It's
Right.
just there was 60 million people tuned in at some point in time for some duration.
I'm
but
not
we
saying
don't
it's
know.
60 million for the entire time. I'm saying what the business model is that makes it live television and is seismic as it relates to sports and streaming getting into bed to change everything for all the customers. Is that if they can keep you around a television for 5 hours, it becomes the Super Bowl, because that's what you do on Super Bowl Sunday. Like it's not a half hour. We've got your day. We've got your night where you're waiting around to see if we can get to midnight. And I'm telling you that everything changes from here. If they can pull this stuff off, they will do more and more. You will see ESPN and Disney have to do more and more, like buying TNT's property, because they're trying to keep up with what it is that Netflix is doing. Like Netflix and Amazon are trying to make this a 2-horse race, and they're trying to get everyone else out of the way. And this is the way that you do it with live sports.
Well, that's a different conversation. I think part of what ESPN's doing is not just buying it. They've been trying to replicate the formula. Their business partners always told them, why can't you be like that property? But this is also part of a settlement, so I think it's a little bit more convoluted. You lost me, though, because that's not what the pay-per-view model is. That's what perhaps streaming model is, and maybe that's what you meant. But pay-per-views, they aren't incentivized to have time spent watching. I got your money, middle finger to you.
Just buy it, you can watch. They don't care. It's a numbers game.
No, but what I'm saying to you is this is the evolution. Floyd Mayweather.
Oh, you're right, Dan. It is the evolution.
But it's not.
Yes.
It is the evolution of boxing. Boxing's the worst, dude. It's the worst. The business, by any standard, MMA now approaches it with the way that Dana White has figured out how to make sure that his labor can't make any of all of this money that they're making with this model. But Floyd Mayweather, 50 Cent was always making fun of him because he couldn't read, but he is the best businessman among athletes that there's ever been because he had all of his intellectual property. What Netflix is doing is being like, no, Floyd, no more for you don't get it all anymore. We will stand above you and we will buy the Jake Pauls and and Bezos and Netflix will then compete to see who gets to be television. Who gets to be the future of television, as Dwayne Johnson can't bring them to the theater anymore on Christmas because the theaters have collapsed.
Dan, I have a question for you. Like, you grew up during like the golden era of boxing. Was the appeal always, let's watch this boxing match because we really want to see one of these guys get smoked in the face?
The heavyweight division was the only one that drew, and the heavyweight division drew because there might be a knockout. Like, that's because there was always
And Mike Tyson.
Because you didn't like the person, or because
No.
that's what I noticed. Like, a lot of people were just hate watching this thing.
That's a lot of boxing traffics and a lot of race stuff. Boxing traffics and a lot of Mexicans versus black people. And let's see if we can get both of those cultures to just gather around with like identity pride around a television. And yes, Floyd Mayweather made all of that money in his career because half of the people were watching to see if he'd get hit. It was actually something that was funny because he's the rare non-heavyweight who got people to watch his fights even though he was playing defense all the time. And it's because so many people just wanted to see him knocked out.
I didn't think Netflix was the big winner of this. I thought that Jake Paul was the big winner of this. Like, Jake Paul,
Yes.
for whatever your feelings are about him, is like incredible at business. That he's able to just generate $20 million to give Mike Tyson so he can make $40 million because he decided he wanted to cosplay a boxer. Like, he's there, and no one knows if he's actually good at boxing, right? Because
We'll never know.
He wins his fights, but he's not actually really fighting talented boxers, right? And he started late in his life for boxing. You'd be starting boxing at in your teens if you were going to be a serious boxer. But I heard this driving in this morning, and it was Spanish language radio, but like they were talking, and it sounded ridiculous, but it's not. Jake Paul's the face of boxing.
Yes.
Right now.
Yep.
He calls himself that, and he's trying to do with his platform good things in introducing. He made a couple of girls stars.
Yeah,
with
you wouldn't
that
have watched
card.
Amanda Serrano if it wasn't for being on that card, probably.
I know this comes with baggage, but I am a fan of what the Jake Paul and Logan Paul media machine has created, and I don't think it's without merit. Say what you will about his actual boxing skill compared to actual boxers. What he's turned himself into is someone that does deserve some respect. Even if he's going in there against other YouTubers or bad boxers, he's turned himself into someone who is at the very least, reputable. And the first thought that was going through my mind as the bell was about to ring, this guy was a YouTuber. This guy was Disney Channel adjacent. He was 17 years old, just goofing around making videos. And then here he is in a boxing ring, staring across the ring from Mike Tyson, the most dangerous man in the world, the most feared man in the world at one point, about to engage in combat with a guy. It's just a crazy run. Like, what is this guy's life?
He's also smart enough to know that the gimmick was gone until Mike Tyson entered the picture and that he needed someone like Mike Tyson. So Mike Tyson would not have gotten a $20 million payday without Jake Paul. Jake Paul would not have gotten a $40 million payday without Mike Tyson. They needed each other for this, and he was smart enough to know, I need a giant name for this next stunt, because it was kind of losing some of its momentum. You weren't really following. He even had a fight when they called off the initial fight or delayed it. He's had a fight in between that and this one. No one saw that one. No one cared. They just wanted to see Mike Tyson fight against him. They wanted to see Mike Tyson beat the crap out of him. And we kind of knew that wasn't going to happen, but that's why you were watching.
I thought it was an absolutely brilliant matchup. You had black versus white. You had young versus old. You had all of the animus against the self-promoter, Jake Paul, the YouTuber turned self-made boxer. You had Mike Tyson, who for most of his career was the perfect villain. All of a sudden, he's the lovable grandpa that everybody's rooting for. I thought the dynamic
and convicted rapist.
Okay, we can say that, but I think
we should probably say that.
Well, you said it.
To have him be the likable, lovable one in this one is doing some climbing. It's doing some work.
I think for a lot of people, we're rooting for Mike Tyson.
I'm not even disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that, look, boxing's the worst.
Yes.
Boxing is the worst. Look, Mike can respect the business.
Playing both sides.
He can respect the business.
Well, Danny
of
Merchant's
this.
coming out.
I'm not playing both sides. I'm telling you, you're out here because Jake Paul won that fiasco at business, getting respect when what's that on that guy's resume? Boxing's the worst. He deserves to be the face of boxing, and another element in boxing that's in play. I saw this on an episode of Rich and Shameless. The promoter, Richie Parker, realized so instantaneously that what boxing needs is a big white dude that he got Mark Gastineau.
Oh, man.
And it was all a crock, an enormous crock. And at one point, allegedly, he tried to poison an opposing boxer because Gastineau was so terrible at actually boxing. Do not sell me on the merits of Jake Paul as a boxer. It's the desperation of an American that wants a white guy who's violent, who can beat people up, and this guy will do as he beats up a 58-year-old.
First of all, I do have respect for what Jake Paul has created. I was telling Greg this last week. We were rooting for Tyson to knock him out.
Right.
But my daughter was rooting, didn't know who Mike Tyson was rooting for Jake Paul to knock out Mike Tyson. Wanted Jake Paul to win, wants to see more Jake Paul. So the younger demographic really likes this guy, or at least is entertained by what it is that Jake Paul is doing. This has to break Dan's soul, because Dan truly cares about the sport of boxing, the art of boxing, the history of boxing. He loves this sport, and this sport has turned into a gimmick. A gimmick is its greatest card, its greatest strength, and that has to drive purists crazy.